Good afternoon to you. I'm Danilo Evangelista, and welcome to today's tropical weather outlook for August 12th, 2026. Today, we're going to take a look at multiple storms which are forming across multiple basins, including one which has already made a surprise appearance today in the Atlantic. We're going to go over all of that, and definitely a lot to talk about on today's menu in the tropics. So let's get started right away, shall we? Start first off in the Atlantic with the current National Hurricane Center Tropical Weather Bulletin. And right off the bat here, Tropical Storm Cristobal, a new addition to the bulletin today and a new addition to the 2026 hurricane season statistics. This was formerly Invest 93L, which was designated yesterday, alongside Invest 92L, which was designated from our tropical wave here we've been watching for the last 2 days in the Atlantic, and this too is very likely to become another named storm, probably by tomorrow. So when that happens, this would be named Dolly. So in just a span of 2 days here, we could possibly get two named storms in the Atlantic, and potentially you can add a third one to that as well, as we are now watching a new tropical wave which came off the coast of Africa yesterday, and the models suddenly became very interested in this wave. So we'll have to watch and see what exactly happens with this, although the National Hurricane Center gives a 40% chance of development right now. So the Atlantic is continuing to heat up as we get closer and closer towards the peak of the hurricane season. Can't say I didn't warn you. It was going to happen eventually, and you bet we are still in mid-August. We probably have more to come besides these two waves and Cristobal right now. But the Pacific also really getting going here, with especially a storm that has a lot of interest right now, and that is PTC 1C. A little bit of a tongue twister there, but right now maximum sustained winds at 40 miles per hour. So this is a potential tropical cyclone, and this is a storm that we've been talking about. This was formerly Invest 93C, which is potentially making a direct aim at the island of Hawaii come this weekend, and watches and warnings are probably going to go up. And if you're in the island of Hawaii, if you're in the island chain, you'll be wanting to keep a very close eye out here on 1C, as very likely, again, we could be looking at a direct landfall, and with that, potentially some pretty substantial impacts as well. And obviously this is very likely, and I think this is almost guaranteed that this is going to develop. The National Hurricane Center has a 90% chance right now, but I'd even say that it is probably 100%. And then we also have Invest 99E to the northeast of it, but that has a 60% chance of development right now. Maybe it could also be another quick spin-up storm, kind of like what we saw with Cristobal today, although this is dealing with shear, and it is less likely to develop, although you never know. But the main focus right now in the Pacific is going to be 1C, and I'll go over more on the models and what to expect with this storm and the forecast track from the National Hurricane Center in just a little bit. So stay tuned for that. First, though, let's get through things that are happening right now across the Atlantic basin. First off, obviously here in the Eastern Atlantic, we have our two waves right now. One of them, obviously, Invest 92L, which is the wave that is off to the west here, and it's definitely becoming much better organized. I'll show you a close-up satellite picture of 92L in a little bit, but you definitely see the Atlantic is definitely starting to heat up a lot more. You have a lot more spinning areas right now, obviously with 92L, and also this aggressive Eastern Atlantic wave too, which came off the coast of Africa yesterday and produced quite a bit of deep convection, probably producing even more deep convection, to be honest with you, than 92L is. And since then, the models have quite significantly and quite quickly uptrended on potential development of this wave, and maybe this could potentially do more than what 92L might have the potential to do so over the next few days, because as I do think 92L is likely to develop, it will more than likely be choked off by shear and dry air as this approaches the Caribbean, in which it will do so and probably bring impacts to the northern Caribbean islands, as I'll show you with the models in just a little bit. Then also we have Tropical Storm Cristobal here, which is in the northeastern Atlantic right now, and let's actually show you a close-up satellite zoomed-in picture on it. And really quickly, just want to mention, if you do see that there's a black shadow that kind of comes across the satellite picture briefly, that's actually the solar eclipse that happened in the eastern Atlantic and over Western Europe today. Total solar eclipse in Spain, and yes, it is exactly the kind of solar eclipse that we had a few years ago in April, I think in 24, and if you also remember the one back in 2017, but Europe and especially Spain was in the epicenter of it today, and obviously you're seeing the reflection of that on the satellite shot. So very interesting feature there, but Cristobal, the main event of what I'm trying to show you here on the satellite, and it definitely looks like a tropical storm. I mean, it has a low-level center, which is spinning here pretty potently, and deep convection. Sheared off to the east. This isn't a very high shear environment right now. Obviously not the most optimal conditions, but clearly it was enough for this to be able to briefly spin up and develop into a tropical cyclone. And I do think it is undeniably a tropical cyclone. I don't know why you would argue against it, as I know some people out there might, especially because I'm pretty sure some people would say, oh, this is not defined enough, this doesn't have organized enough convection, or, this is well out to sea, no one cares about it. Well, Cristobal, even if it's small, even if it's not a very photogenic storm, there are still shipping interests out there in the Atlantic Ocean that are probably going to be impacted by Cristobal. And we still have to watch these, quick spin up out to sea storms, even if they're not going to impact much land, because again, the shipping interests are in the way. But besides that, we do have Cristobal, yet another named storm in the Atlantic Basin, and very likely another one on the way beyond Cristobal with Invest 92L here. And here's a closer satellite shot of it, and you can see definitely starting to become much more better organized as the sun comes down on it in the eastern Atlantic. Well, it's more it is in the eastern Atlantic, but I guess towards the central MDR right now. But anyways, convection blowing up. So obviously always a positive sign of development when you have convection. You could also see there's definitely some noticeable spin on the satellite as well. So there's definitely a decent circulation associated with the storm. It's just a matter of, can there be enough convection to blow up in the overnight hours to help tighten the circulation? And I do believe that it is probably on track to being able to do so. And once that happens, more than likely we are going to get a named storm out of this invest here. And one of the reasons why I think that, here's a look at ASCAT, which is a satellite tool to help, see the visible wind bars and the wind speed on the surface here. So this is basically taking a surface level view of a circulation of a storm. And you can clearly see here, definitely a defined circulation of some sort with Invest 92L. Basically has closed wind bars on all sides, and you can definitely see it has this circular round shape to it. So once again, Invest 92L has a decent circulation with it, and maximum sustained winds at the time of this ASCAT pass, which, believe it or not, was this morning. So you can imagine maybe things have organized even further since. Maximum sustained winds were at 33.6 knots, which is nearly 34 knots. So maybe this might even already have some tropical storm force winds present. So Invest 92L absolutely more than likely on its way to becoming our next named storm here in the Atlantic. Moving on to the Pacific, though, where we are also seeing a developing storm right now, which is probably going to become a name in short order, but with much more interest to potential land impacts, especially for Hawaii here, and that is with PTC-1C, which is in the Central Pacific right now. C, again, standing for Central Pacific. And you can see it is very much elongated right now. The overall setup with PTC-1 is very much, elongated within the intertropical convergence zone here in the Pacific. But there is a low-level center. It's, I believe, located probably somewhere right in here, near where probably there is a convective burst blowing up right now. But this is definitely going to consolidate more than likely in the coming hours, and probably by tomorrow too. PTC1C is going to get a name, which the next name on the list in the Central Pacific, because the Central Pacific does name its own storms, would more than likely be Lala. A very interesting name, and especially a very interesting name given the potentially serious situation that might be unfolding here for the Hawaiian Islands. And the reason why I say that is, well, taking a look at the latest National Hurricane Center forecast track, as of the 5 p.m. advisory Eastern Time in the United States, but there it was the 5 p.m. advisory for the 11 a.m. advisory for Hawaiian time. And you can see here the forecast track over the next few days, moving generally on off to the west-northwest, and already with the tropical storm force wind field, since there are tropical storm forced winds present. So again, once this develops, this will immediately get a name. And it's going to track on off to the west-northwest, and the National Hurricane Center right now expecting that this will move directly over the big island of Hawaii, and probably impacts as well to be felt to the entire island chain, as literally all of it is in the smack dab middle of the forecast cone of uncertainty, which, by the way, I should mention, does not represent the expansiveness of where the impacts will be. This forecast cone only represents exactly where the forecast track could potentially go over, and the entire island chain is entirely inside of the cone of uncertainty right now. So I can almost guarantee you for sure that there is no escaping a potential Hawaii landfall threat this time around. It seems so. Usually I've said this before, and I said this for multiple days leading up to this event, that there's still a lot of uncertainty, and especially when it comes to these, Hawaii threats, especially if they're moving in an east to west fashion, like this storm will be doing. It's going to be moving towards the west. Very often does the track usually shift to the south and ends up moving to the south of Hawaii or to the north, and we never get a direct landfall moving straight east to west head on, but it's looking increasingly likely here that PTC1 might be one of those rare few times in which that will occur. And just taking a look at all of the model guidance here once again, I think it is unavoidable. Obviously, the entire island is in the cone of uncertainty, and all of the models, especially for the 18Z guidance here. All of the tracks go over the island of go over Hawaii here, at least one of the islands. Most of them aiming for the big island right now, but you even see some of these, outliers to the north. They still go over some of these northern islands here, and I believe Honolulu is actually in one of these northern islands. I mean, you would think that the big island of Hawaii would be the most populated one, but no, Honolulu isn't actually one of these smaller islands here. So it would maybe even be a worst case scenario in terms of more people being impacted if this storm ends up going over to the north and potentially over one of these more northern small islands here, as it would potentially bring more direct impacts to a larger population. But either way, I believe the entire island chain here is going to get impacts regardless of where exactly this storm makes landfall. But of course, where this makes landfall obviously will impact the severity of the impacts, especially given it'll impact where exactly the population, just how much of the population will exactly see those severe impacts. And of course, as well, when it comes to impacts, just how much this storm will intensify too will also have a major impact on the kind of impacts we will see. I know I'm saying the word impact a lot, but that's, I think, the one thing you need to take away from this. Impacts will be coming with this storm, especially when I take a look at the hurricane models here. And let me really quickly run through them. The 12Z run of the halves model is out, and the 18Z model is not yet out, so we're just going to focus on the 12Z run here for now. And you can see here the HAFS model, the HAFS B, very quickly intensifies 1C. It obviously starts off as a very broad storm right now, but believe me, this storm will consolidate, and definitely it's going to become a named storm here, more than likely, probably within the next few hours here. And then from there, it's going to intensify pretty decently. But surprisingly, today, the HAFS model is intensifying this quite a bit. In fact, they actually have this approaching the Big Island of Hawaii as a Category 2, maybe even a borderline Category 3 storm. But even then, again, this will impact the Big Island of Hawaii. But you can see here the wind field expands to all of the northern islands here as well. So I would not necessarily pay attention to exactly where this will make landfall just yet, but keep in mind, if you are in anywhere in the Hawaiian island chain right now, you should be expecting impacts nonetheless, and you should be preparing for them either way. But the intensification of this too will also really impact the severity of the impacts we see to Hawaii, because if we end up with a stronger storm, we're probably going to see much more significant rainfall totals, and probably the biggest impact to keep in mind here for the island of Hawaii will be the rainfall, because number one, Hawaii typically doesn't get extreme rainfall events, and the mountainous terrain of Hawaii too puts the islands very, very vulnerable for things like mudslides and, flooding. So this is absolutely potentially going to be a serious situation unfolding for the islands here. And I'm not necessarily sure if we're going to get a major hurricane like the HAFS B is suggesting. Maybe we'll get something more like what the HAFS A has here, and that is a high-end tropical storm to maybe a low-end hurricane, which makes landfall as well in the Big Island. But even with this model run too, tropical storm force winds extend through at least most, if not all, of the northern islands here. And I'd still expect, again, that we will see shifts in the track. Maybe we'll see a shift to the north, in which the center ends up going to the north of the Big Island, and that would potentially put all of the northern islands here, including Honolulu, directly in the line of fire for getting the center and the strongest winds. But even without that, still, more than likely we will see the impacts, especially with the heavy rainfall, which will be just as much of a serious threat. But we're really going to have to pay attention to the intensity here, because we have the HAFS A, the HAFS B on the other hand, which has a very, very strong hurricane, potentially a storm, trying to ramp up to major strength. But even with the HAFS A here, we still have a potential hurricane on our hands, which, once again, the stronger storm we get, the more likely we will also see some more severe impacts as well, with the rainfall and obviously too with the wind. You can't discount the wind, especially if we're talking about a higher end scenario with a stronger storm. But I think right now we especially have to place emphasis on the rainfall. But when it comes to intensification, I certainly would still expect it, and I absolutely think that a hurricane is possible for you here for the islands. Obviously, it depends on whether or not it's only a low-end Cat 1 or potentially maybe even close to major strength, like what the HAFS B is showing. But sea surface temperatures ahead of the storm here with PTC 1, definitely very warm. So sea surface temperatures will not be an issue, and obviously we know that's definitely going to be the case, especially given just how warm the tropical Pacific is in general this year. And we've talked about that extensively before. Very, very warm sea surface temperatures across the general tropical Pacific, due to El Nino and favorable atmospheric conditions. I guess you could say it was only a matter of time before we were going to get a threat to Hawaii, and that is what is, brewing here. And sea surface temperatures will remain warm pretty much throughout the entire track period here, at least going out to the next 5 days. This is not going to run into cooler sea surface temperatures below 26 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's going to stay on more of the marginal side, but 26, 27 degrees Celsius absolutely is, in my opinion, enough to at least see some moderate intensification that we could potentially be looking at up to a hurricane for the Hawaiian Islands here. So yes, we are looking at a hurricane threat. And again, if you are in the Hawaiian Islands, pay very close attention here to PTC1 over the coming days. Start making preparations if you haven't already done so, and anticipate a direct threat and a direct landfall on you, whether you will actually get it or not. Start making flights out from the island if you want to evacuate. And you're going to have to do that sooner or later because, there's no highway you can take out of the island or something like that. Unlike the mainland U.S., you're going to have to, plan for a plane flight out. And those are probably only going to run for two or so more days before the storm gets closer and obviously conditions begin to deteriorate. So we're going to continue to have updates here on PTC1 as the situation gets more serious. So you'll definitely want to make sure to stay tuned for that. All right, moving on to the Atlantic right now, looking at the 12Z GFS here, because the Atlantic is also starting to get active too. And even though we're not going to see maybe as severe impacts as Hawaii might see in the coming days, we might see some impacts to the Northern Caribbean with the storms that we are watching right now. And I'll show you that here with the GFS. Obviously, once again, the more western feature here is Invest 92L, and you can see that develops here on the GFS over the next few days. Might not be more than anything other than a weak tropical storm, because there is still a lot of dry air, and especially once this gets closer to the Caribbean, more than likely 92L will run into the shear wall that is ripping across the Caribbean right now. Again, all thanks to the El Nino. But because of that, because 92L will probably end up a weaker storm, it's probably going to take a more southerly track. And by the time we get to the weekend, very likely we will see impacts here to the Caribbean islands, probably mainly gusty winds and heavy rain. But it is impacts nonetheless. And then beyond that, behind that, you can already see the other wave trailing 92L developing here on the GFS. And the models, once again, have really uptrended this on this wave over the last just day alone. And this literally came off the coast of Africa yesterday, and the models are quite aggressive on it. And that's what happens sometimes with these tropical waves. We have, and this is a very common scenario where we would have a tropical wave that the models are hinting at for days on end, but then it moves off the coast of Africa and it downtrends. But sometimes we have situations where tropical waves very aggressively move off the coast of Africa, but the models do not pick up on it at all until it splashes down into the Atlantic. And it looks like this trailing wave here behind 92L might be unfolding to be one of those scenarios, and might develop here pretty quickly. The GFS is already basically hinting at this developing into a tropical storm, or in the very least a depression, maybe within the next 2 or 3 days too. So when all is said and done over the next week, we might have a total of 3 new named storms in the Atlantic, obviously with Cristobal, very likely 92 as well, and maybe this other wave too. So once again, the Atlantic is getting very active, and it's still only mid-August. We're only just going to be approaching August 15th here, and we still have a week before we get to August 20th, which is when we just begin to start ramping up, climatologically speaking, to the exact peak of the hurricane season, which is still only on September 10th. So what I'm trying to tell you is lots coming here in the next weeks ahead. And taking a look at the long-range ensembles, using the European AI here, because the European AI ensembles have been really good at detecting long-range signals. First off, you could obviously see 92L. Definitely will track on off to the west-northwest here, probably impact the Caribbean this weekend. And then the wave behind it, the European AI ensembles are pretty significantly aggressive on that. And unlike 92L, a lot of the ensembles here may be hinting at this, making it past the Caribbean and potentially into the subtropics. And just like 92L had, when a lot of when the scenario was available for it. If this makes it north of the Caribbean and into the subtropics, it'll probably have to deal with a lot less shear and probably have a pretty decent chance at intensifying quite a bit. And you definitely see that being hinted here on the European AI ensembles. So maybe we might have to watch this storm here pretty closely. And we might have more time to watch the wave behind here of 92L. But even beyond that, going through the next 2 weeks, you could see, but beyond these two waves, one signal, another one that trails behind, and even at the very end of 2 weeks here, as we get towards the very end of August, yet another signal coming off the coast of Africa. So we are really starting to get to that time period here where it's going to be signal after signal after signal coming off the coast of Africa. And I have a feeling that we are probably just at the beginning of what is more than likely going to be an interesting peak of the hurricane season this year. Despite Super El Nino, and I told you guys this, even in a Super El Nino, we still end up getting activity. The Atlantic does not completely shut down and nothing happens. Obviously, we get activity at some point, even if it's going to be toned down or suppressed due to dry air or wind shear. The activity will still come, and it's clearly all happening right now. So lots to be watching in the tropics here over the next week and probably the next few weeks. Obviously, especially now with developing 92L and the wave behind it, and of course, PTC1 here. So make sure to stay tuned for the channel over the next few days as we will continue to update you on how things evolve here in the tropics, and especially with PTC1C future Lala, I should say, which is absolutely shaping up to potentially be a significant threat to Hawaii at this time. But that's going to do it for today's Tropical Weather Outlook video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, I would really appreciate if you like, comment, and especially subscribe to the channel. And make sure to turn on the notification bell so you can get videos the second I upload them, especially now, as we are probably going to start having a lot of updates here in the coming days, maybe even multiple updates a day. And don't be surprised if you catch a live stream or two as well in the coming days as things continue to heat up in the tropics. Thanks for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Peace, love, and kindness to you all. And of course, I'll be back with more tomorrow.